So I always needed to stay busy. So I've traveled around the world, I've done things that the average person hasn't done because I found a career
Right.
that would not let me become depressed.
Right.
It's going to keep you going. And if I did become depressed or if I had mental issues or problems, or they would always give someone there. There's someone there that you can go talk to.
Right.
That can give you help.
Right.
So
upward mobility.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God.
I made it through the rough time. I made it through the tough time. I made it through the bad time. So now I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Gotta weather the storm. I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Okay. One day we gon' get on. Talk to 'em. You ain't got a choice.
Welcome to Bailey Buck Unplugged, where we talk about sports, entertainment, and mental health in support of the Kennedy Kids Foundation. If you're struggling with mental health, we encourage you to speak up and get help. A great place to start is 988. That's the free crisis prevention lifeline. Or you can check out the resources tab at kennedykids.org. If you are in an absolute emergency, please dial 911. Either way, we want you to know that you are not alone and that you don't have to struggle, and speak up, get help. There are resources available to you, and we are here to support you. If you're new around here, I want to introduce you to our host. I am Misty Buck. I am an author and a mental health and performance coach. And my co-hosts are Robert Bailey. He is the president of Rosenhaus Sports, the president of Kennedy Kids Foundation. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time college national champion. He's an NFL record holder, and he's an ESPY winner. And we are also joined by Bailey Brooks Mashburn. She is a celebrity wedding and event planner, a former NFL cheerleader, and the executive director of the Kennedy Kids Foundation.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Bailey and Buck Unplugged. Today's super amazing guest is none other than Randal Hill. And if you're a Hurricane fan, you definitely already know him. If you know, you know. And if you're a Notre Dame fan, you might remember him too. We'll dig into that in a second. Randal grew up here in Miami. Fun fact, his father coached him in Little League football and actually was our co-host Robert's first football coach. And then Randal and Robert went on to be roommates at college at the University of Miami, where they both played football, which is a pretty crazy small world. That's how things usually go here in Miami, especially in the football world, right? So everybody knows everybody. So, when Randal got to the University of Miami, he really made an impact fast. He was part of that 1987 national championship team, and he was a weapon from day one. At that time, he had set a school record for kickoff return yardage. It was super impressive. And then, of course, there's that infamous moment that everybody remembers, 1989. They're in the Orange Bowl. They're playing Notre Dame. The game's tied. Miami's looking at 3rd and 43 from their own 7, right? It seems like it's impossible. And here comes Randal Hill stretching out for that 44-yard catch, swings the whole game in the Hurricanes' favor, get you guys to the national championship game. So we definitely want to hear more about that incredible moment. But from there, he's had a lot more iconic moments, from being a first-round pick in the NFL, playing 7 seasons with the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and the Saints. But the really wild part, if you ask me, is what happens after football. This man did not slow down. He went straight into a different kind of high-pressure job, spending 18 years as a federal agent, which I can't wait to hear more about that too. He's also a husband, a father, and he's actually also really pretty funny. So we know you're going to be in for a good show today. Get in ready, because we're undoubtedly got lots to talk about, especially with mental health during and after sports, and of course in high pressure rules. So Randal, thank you for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great having you on the show, Randal. It's great having you. A lot of people don't know our history, but I will say, you, in my mind, in the state of Florida, have like that Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders type of image.
Not in that crowd.
I think, think about it, Randal. You were one of the fastest sprinters in Florida. you know, Missy just talked about incredible, you know, football career and the thing, and she, you know, didn't even mention that you ran up the tunnel in the Cotton Bowl, which was absolutely
Oh my God, how
historic.
could I forget
It's
that?
a historic event. But and then to do what you're doing now is absolutely. You've just been a winner. You met your wife since college. You have amazing kids and amazing family, and we're just honored to have you on the show. And one of the questions I have is, you know, doing what you do now compared to football, because I think both football is a lot of fun, but I know what you're doing now is also a lot of fun. You know, how do you compare how football has prepared you for what you're doing now?
Well, football itself is very stressful, and to play at the level that you and I both played on, the average American can never say that they've accomplished that particular goal. So, what you and I have done, being able to play in the National Football League, is very stressful. You have to work together in a team. You're working for common goals, and you're in the public's eye. So, you know, move that over to my second career, which was actually, you know, going to the federal law enforcement as a federal agent. It's the same thing. And as a matter of fact, I want to say back in the mid to early '90s, Sports Illustrated did a cover story on the number of former well-known athletes and/or professional athletes who have gone over and became went into federal law enforcement and/or worked for the federal government, because it's just a natural fit. Like I said, it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of stress. But you know, I think even from doing interviews, you know, you're able to go into court and you know, speak and enunciate your words and speak properly about a case or about evidence, which you know, I think it fares well for what I've been able to do.
That's great.
I want to know how you feel like that was a natural fit.
So again, so it's like if okay, if so Robert Bailey and I we played together, right? And like one of the we were in positions where it was very, very dangerous, right? So like you can get hurt if not paralyzed, you know, being on special teams. And I remember as true freshmen, there were 10 of us who did not redshirt. Robert Bailey was one of them. I was another one. But we said we were going to take on the special teams. So special teams is a lot of high impact, a lot of speed, a lot of fast, hard collisions. And, you know, you can put your life in jeopardy doing that. And the same thing when you go through a door. I don't know what's on the other side of that door. I know that I had to control my mental capacity and my mind to know that I have a job to do, and I can't worry about what my partner's doing when I'm going through this door. Just like I can't worry about what Robert is doing. I know that he's going to make his block. I know that my teammates are going to make their block. I know that everyone's going to do their job and their assignment. So it's the same as being a professional athlete, or you know, playing in a D1 college, because you have to worry about your job and your job only. You have to depend on your teammate. So when you're going through a door, like I said, I don't know what's on the other side of that door. It could be somebody with a gun. And I've been in those situations before. Hell, I've been into countries without a visa, if you know what I mean, and nobody knowing where I was. But I have to depend on my team to make sure that we go in, do what we have to do, and come back safely. I got to depend on my team to make sure that they block, they understand the responsibilities and alignments and assignments so that we can be successful.
I knew what you were going to say for your answer, but I just wanted for our listeners to get it. I'm former military, so
there you go. Well, what branch?
I went Army, so I went Army first and then NFL. So you did the
thank you for your service. But you know what? Since you brought that up and since we're talking here, see, now you got me on a roll. So the people that I surrounded myself with when I got into federal law enforcement were people who were either former athletes or military. So one of the guys, and I commend him on a lot that he taught me, is a guy by the name of Max Strong. He was in 2 branches of the military, and his father was the former Deputy Secretary of Defense.
Ooh.
Yeah. So these guys taught me a lot. And, and it's funny because, we can go be getting ready to go do something like high speed and low drag. And like people, other agents want to ride with Randall. They want to ride with my old supervisor, Mac. And we look at him like, no, you can't get in the car with us because you're going to get us killed. Go somewhere else. But he was very direct. So, and then Mac, I got to tell you, he trusted me with his life. And he also trusted me with a lot of his contacts. So one of the contacts that he gave me was a former assistant United States attorney by the name of Richard Gregory. So Richard Gregory is the former assistant United States attorney who prosecuted Pablo Escobar, Noriega, and Oliver North. So these are the crowds that I ran in. These are the people who I learned from. So hats off to you for your service, because anybody will tell you if you were in the Army, Marine, I guess Coast Guard too, and
yes,
Navy.
we include the Coast Guard.
Yeah, I always pay homage because you guys actually put your life on the line for people here in this country, and they have no idea. So thank you for your service.
Oh, no, thank you for yours. I've always wanted to be a federal agent or a police officer, but I failed the eye test. So when you don't make those things, they throw you in the military because you're just a body they throw on the front line and you don't got past nothing. So I think that is cool that you did that. And the mental mind games that you have to be like mentally strong. Like, one of the opening questions we ask all our guests when we start off the show is like, when did you find yourself in the most difficult mental situation? Like, where was it? Would it be, so for you, would it be like your football career or would it be your federal career?
No, the federal career, 100%. When you're on a stand, and so you got to understand, so there's a big difference between federal and state, right? So when you're on the stand, you're speaking in front of federal judges who, lack of a better term, are all powerful. They're not there elected; they are appointed for their entire lifetime. And so when you can't make a mistake, you can't say the wrong thing, and that's why with the political climate that's going on now, I kind of look and I kind of cringe, because if you're on a stand, if you say one word that is wrong and or incorrect, that is called giglio. Giglio means that you cannot be trusted, you cannot testify, and your career is gone. You're done, and they will fire you. That's giglio. Wow. So with that being said, you have to be on your toes, and you have to be ready at all times, and you never know what. Like I said, I think I even told Misty and the crew. I even had a federal judge look at me one day, and he says, "Hey, is that a double Windsor knot on your tie?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." He says, "Not too many people tie a double Windsor knot. You must be squared away." I'm like, "Yes, sir, I'm squared away." But it's been a great career. And I would love to be able to pass some of that knowledge on to some of the younger, to the next generation, because I think that, we need good, strong, intelligent, and smart-minded people to take that baton and move forward.
Wild.
That's great. Miranda, our podcast is about mental health and suicide ideation, bringing awareness to those subjects. And the one thing that we like to discuss is mental health and how, as a celebrity, a lot of the listeners and viewers think that celebrities' lives are just perfect and they never go through anything mental. And so we like to bring celebrities on and give them the opportunity to talk about a moment or a time where they dealt with depression or some sort of mental stress, and how did they get out of it. And I just want to give you the platform to talk to our viewers and us about maybe a moment in your life when you went through something, and then what did you do to get out of it? Mentally.
So this kind of, a little bit of this goes back to you and I. And how I was raised. So I wasn't raised, impoverished. I wasn't raised in the inner city.
Right.
I always had everything I always wanted. Grew up in a big house with a lot of love. And my mental space, let me say space.
Right.
When I was, when I had things that kind of bothered me, I was always able to keep people around me that are upwardly mobile, and mainly my mom and my dad. Okay.
Right.
So a lot of people know, a lot of people don't know. So my dad is a retired high school principal. He's one of the oldest tenured serving principals in Miami-Dade County public history. So I always lean on someone that is definitely smarter than me. My mom, and my mom. Don't bring any dumb women to this house. All right, mom. Keep them stupid women away. So I always keep smarter people around me, such as Robert. I mean, Robert's just a smart guy. He is. So whenever I have, it's the truth. Whenever I have issues, I always find someone who is more intelligent than me that can bring me back full circle and bring me back whole. So going back to the way I was raised, there in my house, there's 2 rooms that I really found myself talking to my dad or my mom, or being able to work issues out in my head. And that was the living room and the dining room. So the living room was a place that if I sat there on the sofa, my dad knew that there was something wrong with me. So he would always come in and sit down and talk with me. And my dad, so one of the largest churches in Perrine, my grandfather actually started, Sweet Home Missionary Baptist Church. And my dad, I would sit there on the sofa, and my dad would sit down next to me. He never raises his voice. He doesn't yell. He's like the coolest of the cool. And he'll look at me and he says, son, everything always works out for this family. And when he says stuff like that, you always have to take it to heart, because he's not going to lie to you. He's always very direct, but he's always right. Okay. So that is one way that I can get out of a bad mood, or if I'm in a depressive state. And I distinctly remember my sophomore year in college.
Right.
I actually lost my starting job. And it kind of bothered me. And we didn't have a lot of time to spend on the weekends. But on Sunday, I was able to spend that time with my mom and my dad. And football wasn't, it's not something that I had to do. It's something I wanted to do. Right. And my dad, with his wisdom, hey, everything's always going to work itself out. Just continue to say your prayers, stay out of trouble, listen to your mom and dad, and go to school, and everything else will take care of itself.
That's amazing. So you had that living room and that dining room that you knew once you got to your house. One of those rooms.
Oh, so the dining room, I remember when I decided, after, we dated 10 years before we got married. I sat there in the dining room. It was me, my mom, and my dad. And I do things like formally. And I asked my mom and dad, I said, hey, I'm thinking about marrying Michelle. And I said, Mom, Dad, what are your thoughts? Do you have a problem with that? And my mom looked at me and she says, well, hell, you ain't gonna find anybody better than that. And he said, you go ahead and you need to go ahead and marry her. And then my dad says, she's a good girl. If you guys are ready to get married, we're here to support 110%. And let's move forward. Then the next question, which I gotta say this. The next question was, I said, because I was in the NFL and I wanted to try to cover all my bases. And I asked them, I said, hey, what is your opinion of, prenuptial agreements and stuff like that?
Right. And
my mom looked at me and she said a few cuss words. And she says, that damn girl don't want anything you damn it got. You better, don't you even, and she just went on.
Right.
Which is true. So, but I had to get their opinion because, again, like I've said before in the past, you have to talk to I call them the distinguished generation so that they can advise you.
Yeah. It's great. It's great that you had two people that you, obviously your mom and dad, but just two people, because it doesn't matter if it's mom and dad. It could be a coach, it could be uncle, it could be anybody.
Yes.
But
Yes.
two people you believed in so deeply
Yep.
that you really weren't, you wanted to get affirmation
Yes.
on things, that decisions, and it gave you confidence that even if you were in a depressive place, right, depressed place, that just talking to them will help you move onward to getting out of that.
Yeah. So there's always, especially the way society is nowadays. So you have, sometimes parents are not married, but there's always somebody who you can turn to in your life that you can talk to for advice, or if you're depressed, or if you have an issue. There's always somebody. I just, and I don't want to get religious here, but I really do feel that God does put someone in everybody's life that you can turn to. It may not be a mom, it may not be a father, it may not be an uncle or a relative, but you can turn to, ask them for advice.
Yeah.
As you go through, this strange thing called life. And you just have to find who that person is.
One of the things we talk about at our foundation is about communication, right? It's about reaching out to your peer, to a teacher, just, reach out for help, talk, don't keep it inside. And so to hear you say what you're saying, it reassures us that that's the right message.
So Rob, do me a favor, man. I want you to add something to you guys' philosophy. So, it's just, there's three simple things here. So there's three reasons why we go to school, okay? One is to learn how to learn. The second one is to learn how to get along with society. And the third one, and most important, is to learn how to cope with change. I think the majority of people who end their lives early, by suicide, or if they get into a depressive state, or if they just go downhill, it's because they have not learned how to cope with change.
Right.
You can learn how to cope with change because change is inevitable.
Right.
If you can learn how to cope with change, I think you've mastered life. Whether it be going from being married, not being married, having kids, not having kids, death in families, changing jobs. Like you got guys in NFL, okay, they're playing in NFL, and then they're not in the NFL, now they can't cope with that. Some guys take their lives, whatever it may be. If you can learn how to cope with change, which is, learn how to learn how to get along with society, and learn how to cope with change. If you can learn how to cope with change, you've won. You've completely won.
Wow. That's a new one. We haven't heard that one. But when you think about it, it makes so much sense because you said it. Change is inevitable.
Inevitable. 100%.
Every single day we wake up, we're going to experience some sort of change.
Yeah.
And
I'm not an expert on suicide and suicide prevention, but I'm willing to bet that almost everyone who has either taken their lives through suicide or have had mental problems, it's because of a change that has happened in their life.
Yes.
They lost a girlfriend. They lost a boyfriend. They lost their job. It is you have to learn how to cope with change.
Yes. One of those fits my daughter. She lost her boyfriend.
See.
One of those fits.
And if you, when you talk to, and like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not. I live with one. Right, Dr. Hill? She gave me thumbs up. But I think that if you look at everyone who has gone through those issues, or families that have gone through those issues, it's because they have not been able to learn how to cope with change. Let's help people cope with change, and then let's put ourselves out of business. You know what I mean?
Right. What are some of the tools you think people who need to cope with change should use?
Well, communication is one, right? You have to communicate, but not just communicate with anyone. You got to communicate with someone who who's been there, done that, and who's successful. Also, good health. The body follows the mind, the mind follows the body. You have to be in good health. You need to try to stay in good health. But finally, and I can't harp on this enough. You have to surround yourself by upwardly mobile people who are more intelligent than you. I take pride in knowing that I am the dumbest person in my house. I take pride in it. I really do.
Right.
Because I have surrounded myself by people who, when I screw up or if I have a question, they can
help you.
Them. Yeah, especially about math. Well, I used to go to my wife about math, but I can't go to her about math because her mind moves so fast, and then she kind of forgets that I'm Randal Hill sometimes, so I can't talk to her about math.
I'm Randal Hill.
Hey, hold on, baby. Hey, it's like one time I was studying for this test to become a federal agent, and the same test that IRS agents take, and it was rate, speeds, distance calculations and stuff like that. And she's trying to explain it to me, and she's going real fast. I'm like, hold on, slow down. And then it's like, you don't understand. Hold on, I'm still through a hill, baby. So I don't go to her as much anymore. But again, all in fun. But you still have to keep people around you who know more than you, so that you can progress in life.
Yeah, I always like to say that if I end up feeling like the smartest person in the room, I need to switch rooms.
Yeah, I know I'm in the wrong room.
I'm in the wrong room. Iron sharpens iron, baby. You just got to keep
absolutely.
willing.
But even going back to those guys who, the guys who were in the military before, whenever, like with the job that I have done for actually 20 years. Yeah, you stole 3 years from me. It wasn't those 17, 18, it was just 20 years. I learned so much from guys, especially guys in the Army, or I've had recon guys around me. I've had Navy SEALs around me. I've had Delta around me. And you learn from these guys because if they make a mistake, if you guys, specifically you, and what you used to do, if you make a mistake, people die. Okay?
Right.
People die. So they're not in the business of making mistakes.
Right.
My wife, when she was going through her residency, she's a big time, she's big time now, so she don't do this stuff anymore. But if she makes a mistake, people die. So those are the people who I want to have around me because they can't make those mistakes.
Right.
It's a really hard thing to turn off. That's the part that I found later on, is that just as a characteristic, having to have everything be absolutely perfect and following the process when other people don't, it gives me massive amounts of anxiety, and it just makes me super frustrated because I'm like, if you don't follow the process and you don't follow the plan, or you change the plan mid-plan and you don't communicate that to anybody else, there's no way that we can succeed or even shoot for the 100% success rate. So I want to shoot for 100 and maybe hit 98.9999, you know what I'm saying? But other people are just they automatically are taking opportunities from you to nail it and be successful, but then I'm being labeled as, oh, why you're a perfectionist. I'm like, so it stays with you after. It's part of the stuff that stays with you after, but it's also some of the stuff that I think is great about me and that I want to keep, so in society,
I think it's positive. Keep it. Keep it.
Very difficult. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. Well, I'm interested in hearing Misty and what she has to say, because this is kind of I never heard the term upward mobility. That's a new one for me. Bailey, Misty, have you heard that before?
No, I actually wrote it down.
Randal, what is your definition of upward mobility, just for for us and the listeners? I've never heard that before.
Okay, so upward mobility, to me, is a step next to, or parallels a statement made by Dr. King. Okay. Dr. King, African American History Month. So he coined a phrase, and it was called the drum major instinct. Okay, drum major instinct. Drum major. What is a drum major? A drum major leads. A drum major comes out first. Everyone dances or moves to the drum major's beat.
Right.
So if you can have that and parallel that with upward mobility, meaning someone who is always uplifting, someone who's always striving to be the best, the want, will, and or desire to be the best, someone who believes that second place when it comes to positivity in life, second place is the first loser, so they'll never brag about it.
Right.
That is an upward mobility atmosphere. Someone who or an environment where you're never set. Okay, Rob, you've played games, you've had interceptions, you've scored touchdowns, you have the longest punt return in NFL history. But Robert Bailey is never satisfied with one particular outcome. I don't care how good you play.
Right.
You always try to outdo your last performance. That is a form of upward
mobility.
Upward mobility. You get an A on something. Okay, well, did I get a perfect score?
Right.
Why did did I give there's so if you watch the movie Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington portrayed someone who was always in a constant struggle for upward mobility, whether it be in the community, doing racism, as a coach with his team.
Right.
Continue to push that envelope because it was always about perfection, whether it be me going through a door, whether it be helping somebody out with mental toughness. You want to be perfect in everything when it comes to the community, but in a positive manner.
Right.
Like I'll give you an example. So Rob, 88, we should have won a national championship. We didn't, and we did get a ring for the Orange Bowl. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah.
I gave that damn thing away.
Right.
I gave it away. Yeah, I literally gave it away. I don't have it. I don't even know where it is. I gave it to some kid because it wasn't a national championship ring.
Right.
It was not. Second place is the first loser. So I don't know where. Now, my mom cussed me out, of course.
Right.
But I don't, because, and I have to be careful because, and I think generations change. So I don't want to put that stress on my kids, the way you and I approach things, right?
Right.
So we have to be careful, but you can help create diamonds by a little bit of pressure, just a little bit, not too much because you don't want them to crack, right? Before they become diamonds. So I don't, I never told my kids I did that. I think Michelle knows that. My mom knows that. Like I said, she cussed me out about it. But it's all about perfection. It's all about upward mobility and, and trying to achieve the apex and or the epitome of, whether it be life, whether it be, so like, yeah, I'll say this, like, for example, no one is as smart as my wife, period.
Right.
Because I strive to find someone who was the smartest.
Right.
Same thing with my kids. I want to make sure that they understand that the world is not a easy place to live, and also we're not going to always be here to coddle them and hold them. And so you're gonna have to step out. We have to push you out the nest. Now I try to push them out the nest, but my credit card still gets ran up, and my bank account lower and lower. But again, if they see that I work hard or she works hard, then they will work hard.
Right. Always striving to move up.
There you go. Upward mobility.
Upward mobility. The birds are constantly climb the ladder. So no matter if you reach the tallest, the highest rung, you want to keep going. You want another ladder on top of that ladder. Let me keep going.
Upward mobility, the want, will, and the desire to be the best in a positive way in life.
Randall, you talk a lot. I mean, it sounds like my coaches back in the day. You know what I mean? I can see how football and your parents and every you know, the way you were brought up, how it has molded you. Because
and not only my own coaches, Sam Burley, Coach Jackson, your coaches.
Yeah, my coaches,
You watch those coaches, man.
Those are my track coaches, by the way, guys.
Those are his track coaches.
Yeah.
Those are his coaches. So Coach Jackson from Northwestern, whenever I got on that track or even played football, you know, you never know who's watching you, right? And I would have coaches from other schools come up to me and say, hey, you may want to try this, or, you know, you seem like you were off your game this time, or, hey, you know what, good job, keep pushing forward, work harder. And I don't care who it is, you know, if it could be one of your coaches, it could be another coach. If there's positivity there, you have to listen to them. Coach Jackson is one of them. I'm telling you, Coach Burley, another one.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Yeah. Those were great guys. But Misty, what are your thoughts, Misty?
Oh man, there's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
All of the things that are being shared here. I will say that I think I love the idea of coping with change, because it's building resiliency, and it's building self efficacy, right? So those things, like, it helps you build all of those things. And I do think those things help with your mental wellness. I do think sometimes, however, that mental wellness is a little tougher than simply, I got to cope with this better. I think sometimes it's a little more complicated. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's trauma. Sometimes there's physical changes to your brain. Sometimes there's chemicals. Sometimes it's hereditary. So whether that's, you know, nature or nurture, I think, you know, we can argue both. So I think the ability to cope with change is absolutely, I think golden. And I think too, what you're sharing about the upward mobility, because we could hear that and we could translate that as perfection. I have to be perfect. I can't make mistakes. I have to, you know, the best is not good enough. I can always do better, right? Like, so we can translate those things, but I think there's a way to do it in a way that is also what you're saying, which is really that we're always on a journey.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And on that journey, you're going to always want to achieve something else. Like, that's human nature, right? We're always looking for a purpose. We always have a goal. We always have that next step. So sometimes I wonder if you ever think of, or maybe in the way that you approach this with your kids, because you talked about every generation is different, approaching it in a way that it's really more about the journey to the destination, because there's always going to be another destination. So it's not really perfection at reaching the destination.
It's never ending.
It's never ending.
So all right, I'll give you an example of coping with change or coping with a situation. I'm gonna leave names out, but I had a class one time, okay? And we had to write a research paper. And deadline came up. I turned my paper in. A couple of days later, I received my research paper back, and the professor told me, I had a 0 on my paper. And she says, I said, well, why did I get a 0? What happened? She says, you didn't write this paper. I'm like, what do you mean? She said, well, Black athletes don't write like this.
Oh, really?
Okay. Now, I can handle that one or two ways. I can go off, which is exactly.
Bailey's ready. She's ready to go back however many decades ago and fight for you.
I can go off. I can get upset, or I can learn how to cope with that change in this person's personality and how I'm going to deal with them, which is what I did. I rewrote it. I said, I'll rewrite it if you want me to, but what I did was, as a matter of fact, I told this professor, if you give me an hour, I will rewrite it right here in front of you. So nice. So I proved my point. Now they got to eat crud, or they have to live the rest of their life with calling someone a liar who wasn't lying.
Right.
So, in that sense, I won. we're athletes, Rob, so we're always trying to win, right? So that is a way that you can, cope with change and or cope with a situation.
What was the grade?
Say again?
What was the grade?
Oh, well, and Rob will tell you, a lot of these professors, not all, but you were going to get like a C+ or a B.
Right.
Because of...
I want the sympathy part, though. I want the sorry involved in my grade when I rewrote it.
No. They wouldn't. You would never... Hell, I had a professor one time tell me that the highest that a black athlete was going to get in his class was a C+.
Like literally verbally in front of the class?
No. Pull me to the side. They wouldn't do that in front of the class. Yeah, see, that's what I got. I got a C+.
Wild.
Yeah. But with every negative story, and my wife will tell you, I'm the ultimate, positive person. I can tell you 10 more positive stories where professors have actually helped me across the finish line, helped me actually learn. And I'll even say this. I had to brief, was it a year and a half ago, I had to brief the vice president's office on some stuff that was going on.
Right.
And when I briefed them, I noticed one of the guys, it was two of them that represented the vice president's office. And they just kept looking. One of the guys, he just kept looking at me. He just kept looking at me. And I was down in the Southern Caribbean, and I was talking about the Southern Caribbean, and then I talked about the North American slave trade, and then I said a lot of people thought it was for cotton, but it was really for sugar cane. I said, and then I even said, even Barbados, and Rob, Barbados actually has, believe it or not, George Washington kept his slaves in Barbados. George Washington still has his house in Barbados. I've been there, took a picture there.
Wow.
And the guy, these two individuals from the vice president's office, when I finished, they looked at me and they pointed at me. They said, man, bro, you're well spoken. I said, thank you. I really appreciate it. And then one of them said, you went to the University of Miami, didn't you? I was like, yes, sir. And then he says, he looked at me and said, man, you really went to class. I could tell you learned a lot because, Professor Marvin Dawkins, with Caribbean studies, we learned a lot about the Caribbean and the rite of passage, the North American slave trade and the islands and everything. I said, yeah, no, I went to class. I studied. Jimmy Johnson didn't believe in having dumb players on his team. You had to go to class. You had to sit in class. He would send the coaches to class. Right. And then you had to sit in the front of the class. And you're not allowed to wear any University of Miami orange and green. So so some of the professors that I've had have actually helped me in my post-career as a federal agent. I'm sorry, post NFL. So the negative situations, yeah, they happen. But again, if you are mentally strong or you stay focused on the end game, you'll be fine. Everything's always going to work itself out. Just got to stay focused.
Can I add something? Because it's crazy how your story was from a few years back, but it's still happening today. So a former guest on our show was my stepson, Jamal Mashburn Jr. So he was in college at the time when we did a podcast with him sometime around this time last year. And then now he's got picked up. So he's playing for the Brooklyn Nets G League team, right? So the other day, he's been having a really tough time because now he's on the new ladder at the bottom rung, though, because he's leveled up. He's out of college. You were the superstar athlete, but now you're the rookie. So he's at the bottom rung of the next ladder, upward mobility. Right. And we've been talking to him about like, hey, you just got to pay your dues and keep going. But the coaching team has been really difficult for him because he's literally, the coaches are like, he's a rookie. He's on the bench most of the time. He's not the star player, blah, blah, blah. But he mentioned to them the other day that, hey, coach, I need to make sure I get out of practice on time on Thursday because it's my last class and I'm finishing my master's degree. And they all flipped out. They were like, why are you in a master's program? What's going on? Like, you're going for your master's? Like, it was just this, like, that story you told about them being like, you went to class, like, just reminded me of the fact that they were so shocked that he's finishing his master's degree while he's in the G League. And we were just like, I'm like, that's still happening. People are still shocked about the
Oh, I got one better than that. This young lady who's sitting behind this computer over here, she has her MD, but she's in school now to get your what? A master's in healthcare administration. She already has her MD. Like, if I have my MD, I'm like, man, y'all, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good.
Right.
But but that is that want, will, and or desire to be the best, to lead, upward mobility. You have to. She's still pushing the envelope to. I mean, if I got an MD on it, that thing's on the wall right there.
Randall, you don't need an MD, but what you should be doing is writing a book called Upward Mobility.
So I'm gonna write a book. I really am gonna write a book. And I want to target, and you're right, but I want to target people to read this book that understand that you can play football or you can play a sport, but you can actually have a career post. And notice I didn't say job, I said career. Post NFL, post NBA, post Major League Baseball. Because here, I know these are about the about numbers. So out of 1.5 million high school seniors, only maybe 500 to 600 will go Division I in college football. Out of that number, only maybe 5 to 600,000. And maybe 5 to 600 will get invited to the NFL scouting combine. Out of that number, only like 300 to 400 may get drafted. Out of that number, only 120 to 130 will see their pensions. Most guys you see on TV don't even see their pensions. So you know what? And I've had people, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna have a career. I'm gonna have a plan. I'm gonna stick to my plan. I'm gonna keep people around me who are smarter than me, so that when I do screw up, they can kind of guide me back and kind of like get me back in line. But the book that I'm gonna write is gonna talk a lot about that, but a lot about some of my adventures. So like years ago, the guy who ran through the tunnel in the Cotton Bowl actually seized an armored truck that had $12 million in it. The guy who ran through the tunnel in the Cotton Bowl in 3rd and 43 against Notre Dame took out the very first cell of Mata Salvatrucha gang members here in South Florida. The guy who played at the University of Miami arrested an individual who maintained a radical idealistic view from Pakistan right here in South Florida. So there's so many adventures that I've had. And I think that needs to come to light so that generations can understand that there's other things that can be done besides playing football or playing basketball or playing baseball. Yeah, go do it, have fun. But you know what? Do something else when you finish that is constructive.
That is so impressive because Robert and and Misty, all the people we've talked to, I think he could even do a book that's tailored to like the younger generation, like a short firm version for like teens, because everybody we've spoken to that's had an NFL career and then talked about having issues with the transition post-career could, if they knew that there was like, listen, this is just temporary. It's a career for maybe 3 to 8 years if you're lucky. And then what are you going to do after? Like the book, like you see what I'm saying? Like had that information earlier on, like what would that change the mental state a lot of the guys that are coming out and transitioning out of pro sports?
And I think there's a bunch of crossover there too, just real quick, because I have heard from many people who leave sports or leave military or who are law enforcement, and there is so much crossover in the experiences mentally with, like, I've had athletes tell me it's like you're returning to civilian life, right? So it's kind of like when they retire. So it seems like there's a lot of parallels there. I mean, you're the one that lived it, so you may say nah, but like I know people that work in law enforcement and they're like, man, my mental health stuff and all this other stuff applies to me just the same way,
So I mean, you brought up a couple of actually good topics or points of view. So when people leave the military, if they're still fit and they want to stay with the government, becoming an 1811 series grade is paramount. So you have a lot of fun, you travel, You do and see things that most people have no clue. I sit back and I laugh sometimes. I do. I sit back and laugh what people think, and especially with the political climate that's going on now. I've been in skiffs. I had a security clearance that was above top secret. I've done all that stuff, and so it's a very interesting life. Also, I think that when guys get or gals get out of sports, which gives you a lot of structure, it does. We got to give homage to and give it sports its just due. It does give you a lot of structure, but you know what? Try to find a field that still gives you that type of structure, so you're not really missing a beat, in my opinion. Whether it be going into federal law enforcement, or whether it be hell, we had a guy who played with us at the University of Miami, who played offensive line, who's a doctor. But you have to find that. You have to find what your niche is.
Right.
We have Robert. Working in the agent business, he still has his finger on the pulse. We've had guys who've gone into law enforcement. We have guys who went into coaching. We've had a couple of lawyers. It's just you have to understand and have the ability to grasp and digest that. Okay, the average person in the NFL only plays 2 years, 2.5. It's more likely than not. It's more likely that I will not get a pension. So I need to put my head in that space, right, where I can have a career, have fun. So that's me. I'm hyper. My mom told me I was the reason why she stopped having kids. I'm just hyper, right? So yeah, Mom, how do you say that? Yeah, boy, you got on my last nerves. So, I always needed to stay busy. So I've traveled around the world, I've done things that the average person hasn't done, because I found a career that would not let me become depressed. Right. It's going to keep you going. And if I did become depressed, or if I had mental issues or problems, or they would always give someone there. There's someone there that you can go talk to, right? That can give you help, right? So
upward mobility.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh. Listen, Randal, we're coming up on our hour. This has been absolutely incredible. I'm sure we could do another 2 hours with you. I am looking forward to all the books. Normally, when we close the show, we like to ask our guests what are the 3 things that they would do to improve their mental health state. But I have to recap for just our listeners that, like, learning how to learn, getting along with society, and learning how to cope with change.
That's it.
Those are the 3
best takeaways I have to reiterate for the show. So I would love for our viewers to be able to follow you, our listeners to be able to follow you after the show is over, especially since we're all now waiting for this book. Where can they find you, Randal?
All right, so I'm on Instagram. It's Randal with 1 L. Don't put 2 L's on Randal, or my mom will come looking for you. It's Randal_Thrill_Hill.
All right, Randal_Thrill_Hill. I don't want your mom to come find us. But if you or someone you know is looking for help, please visit kennedykids.org. Our resources tab has all of our resource options on it. If the person is struggling and it is an emergency, please, of course, dial 911. But if you do not have anyone in your life to talk to, or you do not feel safe with the people that are in your life, 988 is our 24/7 suicide and crisis hotline, and it is always there and available for you. Thank you again, Randal, for joining our show today. We are so blessed to have you.
No, thank you for having me, and I hope you guys do well.
Randal, you hit it out the park, man.